Hi everybody, welcome to week 5. I hope you had a good weekend, ready for another week of school. This week you're going to be reading chapter 5 from Bonnie Thurston's book. Chapter 5 is about the Luke Acts books. Luke was a non-Jewish person, so he's the only non-Jewish writer in the New Testament, which means he was a Gentile. He's also a physician, and we know that he traveled with St. Paul on some of the missionary journeys that St. Paul went on. And so he has a unique vantage point because he is not a Jewish person. He did not start off with Jewish. He just went straight to being a Christian. And so he has an interest in fitting in with the Roman Empire and a respect for the Roman Empire. And that changes things a little bit. Also, we know that Luke and Acts were written by the same person because they're both addressed to someone named Theophilus. And just so you know, there's a couple theories about who Theophilus might be. The first theory is that this is kind of like a real person whose name kind of disappeared through history. Another theory is that it's a code name for a real person because the word Theophilus means God lover. Or the third theory is that it's really just a general address to everyone who loves God. But if you simply look at the very first chapter in Luke and the very first chapter in Acts, you'll see that they're both addressed to the same person. And in Acts of the Apostles, it says, "In my first book, Theophilus, blah, blah, blah." And so we know that pretty much Acts of the Apostles is like a sequel to the Gospel according to Luke. And even though they go hand in hand and you can't really separate the two, they are two different genres. So the Gospel of Luke obviously is a gospel, and Acts of the Apostles is more like a historical account. And so there is kind of a difference between the two. Another thing that's pretty true is that by the time Acts of the Apostles was written, that Luke sees it advantageous for the Christians to fit in more with the Roman Empire, and so there's a little bit less emphasis on women. However, in the Gospel of Luke, there's a great emphasis on women, and sometimes this is even called the Gospel of Women. And so, you see kind of a contrast there between the two books, even though we know they're written by the same author. In the first half of the chapter, you'll read about some of the women that are featured in the Gospel according to Luke. And some of those women figure into the story right away with Mary and Elizabeth and Anna. And some of them are stories about Martha and Mary, who you would have read about last time as well. And then again, when you get to the Acts of the Apostles, the women in the story are not as prominent, and they don't play into every story as much. So as you're reading, just keep some of those things in mind. Let me make sure I said everything. Again, he just wants the Christians to have a positive relationship with the Roman Empire. And of course, some of the persecutions would have probably started by that time. Also, Luke's Gospel and the Acts of the Apostles were probably written after Mark's Gospel and before John's Gospel. And it's kind of believed that Matthew and Luke were sort of writing simultaneously, but in two different parts of the world without really knowing about each other. And so they do share some stories in common, and so the only real plausible explanation for that is that there was a source that they both had copies of that has since disappeared. And sometimes we call that the Q source. Anyway, about the reading this week, you'll find out about some more interesting women. And also this week you will take a quiz, the second quiz. You need to take that Thursday or Friday. I have already posted the quiz, so you can take it anytime that you want, but make sure you do the reading first. And again, I've given titles to the questions so that it helps narrow down what you're looking for as far as an answer. And if I were you, I would always start with the PowerPoint. If you don't see the answer there, or at least an indication of where the answer is there, then I would go to the chapter in the book. Also want to remind you about the research paper that's due in a week, not this coming week, but the following week, so you still have 2 full weeks. That needs to be turned in the following Friday by noon. If you have questions about the research paper, please let me know. In last week's video, I did go into detail about what you should do for that paper. There's also within the syllabus an explanation and a separate handout that I think I put in the first week and the 6th week so that you would know what this paper is about. Remember that it's a formal paper so that you don't use any personal pronouns, and that it's research paper, so you need 4 outside sources, and that you always cite those sources inside your paper. Again, I hope you have a great week. Good luck with the reading. Let me know if you have questions about the paper. Thank you. Bye.